Everybody, this is Dream, and we have a nice large slate for baseball for the ninth. We have, I think, 12 games. Yep. And they start at 7 o'clock Eastern for the main slate. It's a really good slate. Pitching is actually going to be a little bit tougher today than I expected it to be. There's a lot of decent pitchers, but all the decent pitchers are against good teams, and all the, some of the trash pitchers are against kind of bad teams. So, I mean, there's a few good teams against bad pitching, but it's kind of all over the place. So just to go ahead and to get into it here. I really have three pitchers to take a look at on Fanduel. One of them is Robbie Ray. Now his big issue is he's going against Atlanta, who's just absolutely been on a tear lately. But he does carry 50 and 60 point upside just based on what he's done this season. Oops. And overall, I think he's in a really good spot as a pitcher, but it's just not ideal against Atlanta. Now, he can give up some runs and still be okay against Atlanta on FanDuel because of the way scoring works, but he's still going to be capped a little bit to like in the mid to late 30s probably if he gives up several earned runs in the first couple innings. But then again, that would cause him to not actually make it that deep in the game. So it's kind of, I don't know, it seems like a pretty iffy situation. He does usually get some strikeouts though, but he's been up and down on that. There's no real prime answer here at this position, but overall you have to consider him at the very least. The second guy I think is going to be Charlie Morton, and he's going against Seattle. He's in a better matchup. His upside is pretty high as well, though he doesn't seem to go deep into the games as much as Robbie Ray does. But he does have the upside of the strikeouts, and he's been pitching pretty well as of late. You see, he's gotten several 40-point games and 60-point game, but he's a little bit inconsistent compared to Robbie Ray, but he's got a better matchup. Another guy you could consider is Lance McCullers, but he does cap out at about 30-ish points in this particular match against the Angels. Obviously, Trout's going to have some upside in this game, so you have to, and Ohtani too, so you do have to be a little bit careful, but he has been pitching well. It's hard to say that he's going to go deep enough to get some of the bonuses, though, and he may not get the strikeouts either, that's necessary. But he's not terrible. But it's just kind of the slate is that. It's not the greatest slate. Nick Lodolo, he looks okay, except for the fact he's going against a really good team. And so far this season, when he's gone against really good teams, it's not really been that good for him. I mean, he's had a couple of good games, but this is going to be a tougher matchup for him. He is somebody you could consider, but I still worry about the strikeouts, with him because they're all over the place, kind of. And then I also thought you could look at Luis Giolito, or however you say his name. I'm sorry, for Chicago. Another situation where it's like he's not in the ideal situation, and he doesn't always get the strikeouts. But I mean, Oakland's not a very good team. But if I was going to choose, I'm going to choose Robbie Ray or Morton, depending on who I think is going to do better in that particular game. And that's probably where I would start. Going too far down to try to save money here is going to be rather difficult just because of the matchups and stuff. Clevenger probably wouldn't be a bad option in some days, but he's going against the Dodgers. Rasmussen is going against the Yankees, and Montas is going against Tampa Bay. I mean, it's just, a lot of guys are not in ideal situations. So, that's pretty much I got pitcher. At first base, we got several good options. So we have Christian Walker as a good option here. He's been hitting the ball really well as of late. I've been using him a couple times lately, and he's just been really good. And Arizona's in Colorado, so we definitely got that bump there. In that particular game. This is a guy that I'm actually calling the home run call on, and that's Dalton Varsho. He has absolutely been having great games over and over and over, and when he gets hot, he's fun to watch, and he's been hitting the ball really well. Another guy that I really like is Real Muto. He's also just been absolutely tearing the ball up. He didn't have a good game against in the last couple of games against Miami, but now he's back to going against Washington and Patrick Corbin. And my goodness, do we like to stack people up against Patrick Corbin? Granted, today you don't necessarily have to stack against Patrick Corbin because there's several of these type of pitchers on the slate. So he's not out. It's not an automatic thing. Toronto's going against Texas, who's pitching Dane Dunning, and I definitely like Vlad Guerrero in this particular matchup against him. He's been hitting pretty well lately. Freddie Freeman is somebody I think is good at this position. Obviously pretty expensive, but he's been hitting the ball well as of late. And then here's some cheaper guys I think are in really great positions. MJ Melendez against Joey Wentz. This just screams a home run potential game for Kansas City. And if Salvador Perez plays or him, then either one's probably in play. Adley Rutschman's in play here against Boston. Brian Bello has not been very good at all this season so far. He's very young, but it's just going to take him some time to get into this. And then Mr. Talese for Milwaukee against Cincinnati. He's been very boomer bust, and he's just a boomer bust option overall. But he's cheap, and so if you need to save money, he's somebody you could consider as a boomer bust potential. Then I have Will Smith, and you could pretty much put whichever Dodgers pitcher actually starts. Sometimes it's Austin Barnes. If he starts, then he's okay. But Will Smith has been having some really massively big games, and he definitely has that potential in this particular matchup. And then finally, for this position, Josh Naylor. I almost didn't put him in here, but after a while I decided to. He hadn't been hitting the ball quite as well as we'd like, but he's got some big games, and he has home run potential in this nice little plus matchup. So that's what I have at first base or catcher. At second base, I've got several guys here. Jonathan India is my first pick for Cincinnati against Jason Alexander of the Milwaukee Brewers. I feel like the Reds have some really good options at today as well. Now, he doesn't really have like 40-point upside, but he still has like 20-point upside, so he's somebody to consider at his cheap price. Jose Altuve, obviously, I mean, he's had, I think, 2 bad games the last like 15, so, obviously his price reflects that as well. Marcus Simeon's a guy I really like too. He's a little bit tougher matchup, but he's been mashing the ball well. And then Brendan Rodgers in Colorado. Now, you got to remember, like, Colorado players, they only really hit well in Colorado. So he's kind of been robust, but he can potentially do it in this particular matchup. Gene Segura, he's been absolutely just having some good games. Now, he's been having a lot of bad games as well, but, he's kind of hit and miss. Almost, I guess you could call him boomer bust at this point. And then Javier Baez, he's actually too cheap for his potential production, I think. Which is sometimes very easy to do on Fanduel, but he's even more. He looks so good in this particular matchup to me. I don't know. And then also Brandon Lowe for Tampa Bay. Now he's been kind of in a slump, but he's been getting some hits the last few games, so I think he's got some opportunity. Not only that, but he hadn't been starting every game, so you do have to check in on that. Let's go ahead and get into third base. Let's see here. We got Josh Rojas for Arizona. I mean, a lot of people are going to stack the Arizona Diamondbacks against Colorado, and for good reason. They're good players, and they are not actually all that expensive. Some of them are, but not too much, and they're definitely going to be useful. Ryan McMahon also is a potential option, but he's not been very good lately, as you can tell. But he hadn't been at home for a while, so you can see even in the last 2 games against Milwaukee, he got some points scored, which he hadn't really done since they've been on their long road trip. And you go back to where he is against Texas and San Francisco, and you see he's had some good games again. So, yeah, being back home is going to help the Rockies starters. Luis Urias is a guy that I think has a really good shot today, and he's super cheap too for Milwaukee. Excuse me, I can't speak. He's kind of boomer bust, but when he's good, he's really good. Yohan Moncada, my goodness, this dude just had a absolutely insane game yesterday. He had 5 hits, 2 home runs, double, 5 RBIs, 3 runs scored himself, scored 63 points. If you used him yesterday, you definitely cashed on Fanduel, and I think he's somebody you have to consider because he's getting himself going. So uh, he's officially out of the slump he was in. Alec Boom is somebody I think's in a good spot. He's been pretty good lately, and then last but not least, Spencer Steer for Cincinnati. He's in a pretty good position here. He needs to. He's been pretty consistent at actually getting up to enough points that makes his price worthwhile. Uh, some guys like Gunnar Henderson haven't been quite as consistent as that. At shortstop, I have this. I have Urias, and then I also have Baez again, who I mentioned. And here's one of my favorite dudes lately, Elvis Andrus. This guy has been absolutely killing the ball. His price is way too cheap for what he's been doing. So I really love him today. He's probably going to be my shortstop. I'm not saying he's going to hit a home run necessarily, but I think he's going to score points. And Chicago's they've been really doing well as of late. Willie Adames is in a pretty good position. He hasn't been hitting the ball great. He's kind of boomer bust right now, but he's still somebody you have to consider. And then Gunnar Henderson. Now, the problem with Gunnar is he started off with a bang, and then he's kind of gone downhill ever since. But he's still got a lot of potential. He's got home run power. He's hit well in the minors. It's not like he's a scrub or something, so he's probably just like getting used to the game. And now that he's going to go against some easier opponents when it comes to the bats, the pitchers rather, then he's going to have some advantages. Let's go ahead and get into outfielders. We got a good outfield selection today. This is probably my favorite position of the day. So we got Max Kepler, who is day to day, so you do have to keep an eye on that. But before he was hurt, he was doing really solid, and so I like him as an option if he plays. Then Jake Fraley, this guy's been hitting the ball pretty well. He's a home run threat every time he comes up to the bat, and I like him in this matchup against Milwaukee. Then I have Kyle Schwarber. Excuse me. He's actually not priced that bad, even though he hasn't been that great lately. He's kind of due for a home run. I mean, he just hasn't. It's been a couple. I think it was August 29th was the last time he hit one, so he's definitely due for one. And he gets the juiciness when it comes to having to face Mr. Patrick Corbin. So I definitely like him as an option. Charlie Blackmon, if he plays, he hadn't been playing every day for Colorado. He just like a lot of the Colorado guys, you got to go back and look at when they were in Colorado, how they were doing, and he's somebody that does well at home, but not so great away. Peralta for Tampa Bay, I used to really love this guy a couple of years ago playing DFS, but he hadn't been as good this season. But if you look at the most recent days, he's been doing better. He's somebody, it's kind of a secondary option. Eloy Jimenez for Chicago, he's kind of a secondary option as well. But he's very boomer bust, but my goodness, when he booms, he's 30 points easy. Then Bryce Harper, obviously, is a good player he gets the benefit of the Corbin effect. He needs a good game too, so. But he's kind of a secondary option just because he hasn't been playing well. Then Cedric Mullins, he's in position here to have a big game, and he's been having some big games lately. And I just hope he can continue it, because he's going against a weak Boston pitcher. And then, of course, Varsho, who I already mentioned. And then Jordan Alvarez, I have him as a potential guy. He's pretty expensive, though, and he hasn't been doing particularly great lately, but he's kind of due for a home run. Hadn't had one in a while, actually. And so I think against some LA Angels pitching, he can definitely take advantage. And then McCutchen for Milwaukee. Now, he finally got out of his slump, because he was in a slump for a while, but now he's getting going again, and he's been hitting the ball really well. Terry Friedel, he's one of my favorite plays today, I think, actually, too. TJ Friedel, rather. I don't know how I call him Terry. Anyway, he's been really hitting the ball well, and I really like what he's been doing lately. He's not really a super home run threat, but he's still scoring lots of points, as you can see. And then two more guys, Jake McCarthy. He might be a second home run call because of how good he's been playing. And of course, he's got this nice, juicy plus matchup against Colorado. He's been absolutely just murdering the ball lately, so I really like what he's doing. And finally, last but not least, is Juan Soto. Now, he might be coming back today. If he does, then he's somebody to take a look at. If he's not, then you know, we got plenty of other guys to go to, but he's somebody to consider if he does play. So I actually think I'm going to say that McCarthy is a potential home run call too. So maybe 2 home run calls on the slate with him and Barshow. Yeah, I think it's a really good slate. I think the scoring's going to be pretty high due to the pitchers. And yeah, so if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for liking, comment, subscribing. Shout out to the Patreon guys. And make sure to join the Discord so you can chat with people. We got some people coming in. We got several people in there now. I've got a place where that tracks home runs, and we also have a home run call chat room that you can make your calls to see who you think's gonna hit home runs. And yeah, and you can talk about any sport and anywhere and stuff like that. Make sure to check out the Patreon if you're interested in that kind of thing. And have a nice day, guys.